Ladies and gents, boys and girls, pronouns of your choosing, welcome back to the Firefighters podcast. It is great to see you. It's great to have your ears with us once again. Hope you're well. Hope you've had a fantastic day. We have got a great episode for you. Today, my guest is my good friend Simon Ash from the global functional footwear experts that are HAIX. Now, HAIX is a German-based brand and have got a seriously passionate connection and a wonderful story to share with us about the origins of HAIX and how it is the family business that is so entrenched in the fire service, it is practically part of the fabric. But before we jump in there, let's hear from our Firefighters podcast family. A big thanks once again to our partner, Blue Light Card. Now, Blue Light Card, they work to recognise the hard work and commitment of those individuals carrying out some of the most important jobs in our community by offering members an amazing selection of online and in-store discounts at over 15,000. That's right, 15,000 commercial partners across the UK. Now, unless you've been living under a rock, that's right, we are heading into summer, and Blue Light Card has just launched a new campaign helping all of its members get ready for summer. It's got some epic discounts on fashion, must-haves, garden staples, holiday essentials, keep you looking and feeling your best for less. My partner is never one to miss a saving, so we've been kitting ourselves out and kitting the kids out and utilising all of the discounts on Blue Light Card to do exactly that, getting those holiday essentials ready to get out of the UK as soon as we're able to, and we're even booked in to go down to some of the lovely little coastal villages around the UK. So we've got to make sure we've got those must-haves. And even if you're just kitting out the house, you're getting the chairs, you're getting the covers, you're getting the barbecues, you're decking out your garden ready for that summer. Blue Light Card has got so many amazing discounts to help you make sure you get exactly what you want and are still making that saving. So get over to bluelightcard.co.uk and find out how you can save on those summer months. Dressing sharp, looking good, looking classy, in comfort, and getting yourself ready for summer. A massive thank you to William Wood Watches, a long-term partner of the podcast. Now, I'm a massive fan of this brand. I've had my Valiant watch now for probably 2 years, and I get so many mentions on it. If you're somebody that's into their firefighting history, if you're somebody that likes something classy, something sharp, but also something functional, then you've got to head over to williamwoodwatches.com. If you're an emergency services geek, you love your fire service memorabilia, the authenticity that's behind this brand is absolutely incredible. It's all based around the owner, Johnny, and his grandfather, who was in the fire service for 25 years. He won commendations for his bravery and passed away, after which Johnny started the brand, and this is now the legacy of his grandfather. One of the really memorable acts of William Wood was actually on the 29th of June 1966, when he and 3 fellow firefighters saved 5 small children aged between 5 and 1 from a severe house fire. And you feel that a lot when you look at the watches. For example, the straps. I mean, that's always the one that really gets the mention when people see it and they go, hey, that's such a unique piece. The red fire hose that I have on my straps are made from hose used by the London Fire Brigade. That iconic red strap comes from hose that's been in the service for a minimum of 10 years. I'm talking stuff that's getting thrown down the street at road traffic collisions, it's getting hauled up the side of buildings. You know, it's actually been in there in the thick of it. And you can see this on the markings as well. Mine's got some black markings around the edging of it, where it's obviously been impregnated with a chemical of some form at some point on an incident. You know, it's actually been out there on the front line. But I mean, they've also got it in the yellow, the green, the blue. So no matter what watch you belong to at your service somewhere across the world, you can make it personal to you. Now, the Valiant collection I've got is such a stunning piece. It's got the Super Luminova on all the dials, so day or night you'll still be able to see what you're doing, still glance at it on the middle of the night at a job and still get the time. I was also surprised when I was swimming at night the other week. That obviously works underwater as well. Even down to the small things. You glance on the side of the watch, you've got the British brass firefighter's helmet. It's been sort of melted down and carved into the side of it. It's such craftsmanship. I absolutely love it. Bigger than all of that, it's just the story behind it. It's a perfect thing for a Christmas or a birthday gift for any firefighter or lover of the emergency services. It is the perfect gift. Now, I know I keep banging on about my Valiant, but they've also got the Bronze Edition, the Chivalrous, and earlier this year they brought out the Triumph collection. This one was an absolute game changer, a stunning timepiece. So head over and check them out. I think they're running a 10% discount at the moment, so get straight over there. WilliamWoodWatches.com, an incredible partner of the podcast. Also want to give a shout out to our media partners, the Emergency Services Times and the Emergency Services Show. We're also working in line with the Cheshire Fire Challenge and the British Firefighter Challenge. Competition's back on in the UK towards the end of 2021. All the details are in the notes for the show. And that's the names in the frames for today's episode, folks. Today's episode, we're going to talk about how did the brand start, how did it grow, what was the origins, how this unique father-son, deputy chief, fire officer relationship was, and how we found HAIX on the feet of so many firefighters on the front line. These guys truly are the heart and soul, and yes, there's a very intentional pun right there for everybody listening in, of the frontline firefighter. Now, of course, and not forgetting once again that HAIX do look after more than just our firefighters. They are out there with our rescue, our medical, our workwear, the police, the military, forestry, streetwear. These guys are looking after heroes in all forms of life. You will find these incredible, comfy, durable, fit, strong, protective boots on the feet of military personnel all over the world, firefighters all over the world, frontline bobbies on the beat up and down the country, and also globally. It's such a pleasure to have Simon on today. He's really a funny guy as well. I've loved talking to Simon, and it's great to share a moment with him. I've been wearing HAIX boots for probably the best part of 10 years now, both professionally and personally. My most recent purchase was the Black Eagle Athletic, and this is such a stunning boot. I wear it when I'm out walking the kids. I wear it when I go hiking. Took them up Snowdon a couple of weeks ago. These things look good. They're waterproof. They're so comfy. They're so light, and I know I'm still going to be screaming the benefits of these boots in 10 years' time because these are durable. That's why I'm always willing to pay for the best, because when you buy well, you buy once. So a big thanks to HAIX, a big thanks to Simon, and most importantly, of course, a big thanks to you. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for coming back. I'm glad you're taking value from it. I'm glad you're enjoying the episodes. It's a massive pleasure to be connecting with another massive, awesome global brand like HAIX, sharing their story, sharing their passion with you, and for you taking time out of your busy day to be here with me and with Simon on the Firefighters podcast to listen in and hear that voice of the emergency services. So without further ado, if you're sitting comfortably, buckle up for safety, and I will see you on the other side. There he is.
Good morning.
Hello, handsome. How are you? I'm awesome, mate.
Very well.
Simon Ash, welcome to the Firefighters podcast. How you doing, brother?
I'm very well, thank you. Good to see you.
I wanted to have you on because going way back, I've worn HAIX for years, and obviously we've done work with the British Firefighter Challenge and stuff like that. But I was and I'll be honest with you, I was pretty naive about how far back HAIX goes. And, I've got a massive internal thing for family-run businesses and stuff like that. And I really wanted to get you on and talk about HAIX because so many of us wear them and so many of us reference them. And I mean, the slogan, heroes wear HAIX, a lot of people love that. But I think there's a lot of firefighters out there, and I hate to say that to the sort of head of UK and Ireland sales, that a lot of firefighters don't know enough about how much of an incredible brand this is. And also, you don't just do fire boots. So before we get into it, you are Simon Ash, UK and Ireland Sales Director for HAIX, the one and only.
Yeah, well, so you're building my part a little bit as sales manager, but I'll take a directorial role.
Hell right. It says it on your emails. I'm joking. I was going to put CEO, but I just have to copy it, edit it out later.
Yeah, but CEO HAIX UK, yeah.
I am the ethos. I am the alpha, the omega. I'm the one with all the... No, I didn't put anything like that. So many companies claim to be this whole family-run business thing, but few can confidently say that as much as what is now, this global functional brand as HAIX. But I didn't realize it came from once again, humble beginnings and with a family-run business. Yeah,
I mean, it was started back in 1948 by Xavier Hamel. That's where the name HAIX comes from, by the way. The Hamel, H-A-I-M-E-R-L, and Xavier, X-A-V-E-R.
It's always one of those, it's a silent X, isn't it?
Yeah, and the X from Xavier. So that's where the name HAIX comes from. But that was 1948, and it was a shoe factory. It was a humble shoe factory in Hamburg in Bavaria, where he was, cobbler by trade in shoes, made shoes for themselves, for other brands. And I suppose the turning point came in 1992. His son, Ewald, was working obviously within the family business, but he was also, he worked his way up to the Hamburg Fire Service, where he was the kind of deputy head.
He was the deputy chief, wasn't he? Ewald was.
Deputy chief, yeah.
So
he
was kind of the bridge between the two, because it's always that, isn't it? It's hard. It's hard to find the son of a great man who is also a great man, because when your dad runs a massive shoe company like that, especially with all due respect, when something's German made, you kind of whether you think Volkswagen or something, it's pretty good, isn't it? It's pretty bulletproof.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? China might be a bit cheaper, with all due respect. Sorry to any Chinese people listening, but it doesn't necessarily, just from the stereotype, it tends to be built to last. But when you're the son of somebody that's built something incredible like that, and you've got your own entrepreneurial itch. But I mean, let's not brush that aside. He did rise to the level of deputy chief in Hamburg Fire Service, so that was pretty good.
His heart and soul was in firefighters. He just loved it, and he was also a master shoemaker. So and soon as he kind of took over the business in 1992, the first thing he looked at was what was on his feet, the old rubber boots into a classic leather fire boots. And that was kind of the beginning of where HAIX as a brand really started to take off.
Can you imagine, though, in that time, it must have been must have been a really controversial thing to do, because yes, he's that hybrid passion, but also with a manufacturing background. But it's kind of like the podcast in a way. You're doubling down on quite a niche. And I mean, I know HAIX still produces stuff for military, for police, for workwear in general, but for him to step up to run the company, and then wanting to, I get we all want to put our own stamp on it, but that must have been really challenging, because he was like I want to put a load of money, a load of investment, innovation, and market research and stuff into making firefighter boots. The old hat would have been like, we've already got something that works. Why do you need to try and ruin it? What are you trying to do? And he'd be like, oh, but I'm passionate about it. But this could have been a very different story if it were not for the tremendous success that HAIX has been. We see and hear these horror stories of somebody that comes in, oh, this person's passionate about painting, and they ruin the family business. But HAIX really, that's when it stepped into its own niche, really.
Yeah, and Ewald, working with Ewald, I remember the first time I met him, he said, wow, this guy knows his stuff. Yeah. He really knows his stuff. He is from a shoemaking perspective, he really, really. And then, from working all his life within the emergency services, working within the fire service, but also working with the police and ambulance services and military and stuff like that. He really understood what made a difference to them with their footwear. Yeah. And I think that's the key thing. You're absolutely right, Pete. There are a lot of people say, well, it works fine. Yeah. I don't need to change.
If it's not broke, don't fix it. Just keep doing what we're doing. Maybe do a bit more, because every member of the general public needs boots. They need shoes. Just keep doing that. Don't mess it up. Not this firefighter dream you've got.
Yeah, and he could say, well, okay, it is working. It does okay, but it could be better. Yeah, and you could then do your job better, which was the kind of key thing to it. Is yes, we can all make better pieces of equipment, stuff like that. But does it actually help you make you do your job better?
That's it.
And does it make you feel better when you're doing your job? And does it help? And particularly with footwear as well. One of the key things is keeping you active, keeping you fit, keeping you healthy. So
poor footwear can be a massive barrier to so many things.
At the end of a long shift.
I mean, everything starts from the ground up. Do you know what I mean? From posture to performance to your attitude at work. If you're on your feet all day and you've just got rubbish pair of boots or rubbish pair of shoes, they don't fit right, the ergonomics that will offset in how you stand, how you present yourself, and how you work. If you're constantly having to compensate for shoes that just don't support you, they're not functional, they don't last, that's like the secret sauce. I think, they say in the military, don't they? They always say first two rules: look after your feet and look after the person beside you. I think that's pretty much the first two ones. If your feet fall to bits, we can't use you.
Yeah, exactly. And we, as you know, we work a lot with the military. It's now our biggest, from a percentage wise, it's our biggest segment as a business, because obviously you win a big army contract. That's a lot of boots. But yeah, you're absolutely right. If a soldier can't use his feet, he's no good. No. He's no good to his generals, to his his masters, and he needs to stay on his feet and needs to stay healthy. And we look at it a lot as well. If your feet are uncomfortable, your concentration levels dip, because you're thinking about your feet. You're not thinking about what you should be doing.
Mate, I even think about this so I've got 3 children, and I think about this with my kids. Like, you may be skimping on the coat that they wear to school, or you're forced to buy the certain type of trousers or the certain jacket or uniform that they've got. But your shoes, you can go wherever you like to get your shoes for your kids. And I always said to my wife, I said, we get great shoes for the kids, because I don't want them not being able to run around outside, not being able to focus in class. Because you're right, if you get that wrong, people don't appreciate the massive difference. And I do think most people will happily spend a bit more on a great set of footwear, because they know it's going to carry them through their entire day without seeming too obvious.
Yeah, I totally agree, obviously, and I'm slightly biased. I've been working in the footwear industry for 27 years now. Right. So yeah. My wife does get slightly annoyed with me when we've been buying shoes for our daughter. When I go, Yeah, well, we could get those shoe ones. However,
yeah. Have you thought about this? Oh, for God's sake, Simon, don't. Okay, I get it. Whatever. You pick your shoes, okay?
yeah, the shoes. I'm not allowed to go shoe shopping with them anymore.
And women, I mean, we're not going to vilify women, but crikey, they do choose some shoes that are not entirely appropriate either for the environment and certainly not for their general posture and their feet and everything like that. It's crazy sometimes. So how did you first come to start working with HAIX?
It was 7.5 years ago. I've been in the footwear industry for a long time, and my background had been in sports footwear to start with. Adidas for 6-7 years, and Mizuno 6-7 years. Then I was at Dr. Martens doing industrial footwear. Things changed a little bit at Dr. Martens. They kind of moved towards more fashion type product as opposed to functional industrial footwear, type product. And hence, I got in conversations with HAIX, and they were looking for somebody to look after the UK market for them. Immediately, when you look at the product, I'd already referenced HAIX products when I was working my job at previous brands where, this is how to make a proper boot.
Yeah.
It's kind of, so you'd always reference them anyway as a kind of the product to look up to. That was the aspirational product. That's what you want to try and get to, a product that meets the requirements that they do.
Do you think the emergency services sit in a strange little middle ground? Because you think boots, and maybe you think, working at a very slow, mundane pace, maybe walking through a factory or something like that. And then you think of like your background from sporting, athletics. It's all about how does it work alongside the athlete? What are the performance metrics and things like that? And the emergency services very much sit, and I include military and police and fire service, ambulance, everything in that emergency services. They very much sit in the middle ground because I always, and this might be a bit of an egotistical way to look at it, I always think of us as athletes in uniform, basically, because at times we want to look good, we want to look smart, we want to look presentable, but at a moment's notice, we need to be empowered with the uniform and the equipment and the footwear and everything else and the PPE in general that allows us to perform at our physical optimum.
You're absolutely right. It's functional footwear, and that's one of the things that attracted me to kind of working in this industry.
Yeah.
As you say, my background was in sports. I'm getting a little bit old to be able to perform in sports these days, so I've kind of moved into kind of this market where that technical know-how is as important, if not more important, because you're not only talking about the performance elements, the kind of the cushioning, the support, the stability, but when you get to emergency services, that protection element comes into it as well. A sports shoe, it just has to perform.
Yeah.
Yes, you need to be protected from injuries, etc., etc. But when you get to an emergency services footwear, it needs to perform. It needs to kind of protect them from injury. But you've also got the added element where safety toe caps, puncture-resistant midsoles, cross-tech, door cross-tech, blood and body fluid resistant.
Is that where Eval's sort of specialist input came into the role? Because again, I suppose he was that, and keep referring to it, as this hybrid, because he kind of came preloaded with a lot of this thought process in place, probably a very good understanding and awareness at a deputy chief level, who distributors, who brands were, and how he could resource equipment, materials to ensure from a safety perspective. Because like you said, it's not just about how it feels, how it looks. It's got to be able to protect you in some fairly hostile environments.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and Eval, because he came from that firefighter background, he understood that from all the other emergency services. We can sit there with our development team, with our research guys, and we can do as much research in the world. But if you're not talking to the end user, you're not working with them on a daily basis to really understand their requirements, you're not going to get it right.
No.
And that's what he really understood, is that if we want to do a boot for the army, for the military guys, we need to talk to the soldiers. We need to work with them. We need to do wear trials with them. We need to get boots out to. So in any boot that kind of makes it into our catalogue has, from the first day it hits the catalogue pages, there's been work on that for years beforehand.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's already gone through several iterations and product testing, and it's already been out there. And that sort of market research, I don't see that happening with as many brands anymore, because let's be honest as well, that's not cheap. Do you know what I mean? You've got to manufacture something, you've got to almost give it away, because once it's been, especially footwear, once it's been used and worn, it's fairly redundant after that. And, that's a big investment, but I suppose it speaks volumes of the commitment that HAIX makes And it's kind of the chicken and egg thing. You're like, look, you're not going to create a great product unless you invest the time in that product research and invest in the actual frontline worker. But then people are almost like, yeah, but A, I can't afford to, and B, I think I can make a great product without it. And then they fall flat on their face when they don't create a great product, and it's kind of like a negative cycle, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think what we've always found important is we do what we think is right. You know, we stick to what we've learned, what we've kind of understood from the end users. Yeah. There's too much. You can see it a lot. You go to one of these footwear trade shows. There's a lot of Me Too products. There's a lot of kind of, you look at a HAIX boot and we'll go, well, we'll just make one like that and put our brand on and make it cheaper. And we see that a lot. And you know,
that is a very common thing. I love that term. It's a very common Me Too products, isn't it? They just go, oh yeah, Me Too, and then just bang their name on top of it, change the color. And even you can have the best patents in the world, but it's very, very difficult. If somebody's going to go out there and do it, you almost need to have that and self-confidence to go, yeah, let them do it. It's fine. No, but they're doing it. They're copying us. Well, they're going to. They're going to. That's a compliment.
Well, they often say, exactly. It's a form of flattery to some extent. The fact 100%. That they look at your product and feel that we want to copy that. Yeah. And it happens. We see it a lot. We see it a lot in all the industries, in workwear, in military, in
is there a lot to be said there about the sort of finite game versus the infinite game, though? Because like we've said, you guys have been around since 92 in this current fashion, but obviously 48 in the long term. So there's that aspect of people probably want to come in and go, oh, HAIX are doing this, but I tell you what, they haven't seen this pocket in the market. They try and go big, go hard, for what, 12 months? And they're like, we were the biggest boot manufacturer in 2021. And you're like, okay, yeah. And then you don't hear from them in 2023. Do you know what I mean? Whereas it depends what metric you're using. People go, we're the greatest footwear brand. What was the metric? What were you deciding on? What number of employees? How many boots sold? Profit margin? Data is very nice and can be very, very flexible when people start trying to do their Me Too brands, isn't it?
Yeah, and a lot of it can be price driven as well. You know, people will do the Me Too copy product and say we'll do it cheaper, and then they start. You know, we use Gore-Tex membrane as an example for in 90%, 95% of our boots because we know it's the best waterproof protection you can get. Yeah. We've done the research. We've worked across all the different. We've looked at that and gone, no, nothing beats it. And until anything gets anywhere near it, we ain't moving. Yeah. And you know, we look at all these things and people come in, do it cheaper, and they come in for a year, they steal some market share from us, and then we go, okay.
Is there a fact as well, though, that the very nature of the product that you use? I mean, you know, I've got a pair of HAIX boots that I think I got. How old was I? I'd have been 20. I think it was about 8 years ago that I got a pair of these boots, and I've took them up Snowdon. I've took them everywhere, and I've got them 8 years later. Do you know what I mean? They still look great. Yeah, okay, I've looked after them and whatever, but the nature of your product is it's designed to be something that lasts. Whereas somebody could get in there quick. And until 2 years later, when it falls apart, you don't really know the difference. Or until you do immerse it in water, you don't really know the difference. So on the face of it, it must, and I know you're a consummate professional, but it must be bloody frustrating with all due respect when you're like, that's not sustainable. It's not sustainable at that price point. It's not sustainable with those materials. It's not going to last. And you're trying to say that without seeming like a real tool must be difficult.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. I mean, it can be difficult. I mean, and you know, we're also not blind to the fact that we're not the only people making great boots. There's lots of great boots out there. Yeah. You know, and that's where we've got to, you know, try and stand apart and do our own thing. And that's why we kind of truly believe the way that we do it is right for HAIX, is right for our customer. But yeah, it can be frustrating when you see a good customer of yours who's been wearing your boots for a long time, and again, we found an alternative that ticks all the same boxes and is coming to us at £20 cheaper. Yeah, we kind of go, okay, look at it and say, okay, it's a decent product, it's coming into you cheaper, but you're probably going to have to replace it in 8 months, 9 months time, because it will start to lose some of the quality that it's got. Whereas our boots will generally last a lot bit longer, and we give good warranties on that, and et cetera, et cetera. So it's that whole thing of buy cheap, buy twice.
Yeah, and that's it, isn't it? And a lot of this, can be political as well. At the end of the day, you work in a lot of sectors where people aren't necessarily, with all due respect, spending their own money, and they're in an interim role, or they're in a role for a year, 2 years, and you're dealing with people that it can be challenging because they want to look good, they want to get the best deal, and you can appreciate that. In 2010. You guys have been going for a good, strong 17 years, but this is probably the one of the products that I'm most familiar with. It's certainly something I've worn operationally. You guys launched the Fire Hero, revolutionized version of the fire boot. How did that come about, and what was the big sort of game changer that made you think, right, this is the next level?
Fire Hero 2 was very much, again, a passion of Eval's to kind of create the perfect fire boot, and looking at all the elements within the current fire boots that were out there and the ones that we were manufacturing, your regular pull-on fire boots, your zip and lace fire boots and stuff like that. Whereas, I think probably the most unique thing was the lacing system on that boot, where you had the two-zone lacing system, where you had separate units of lacing, or they're all kind of merged in together, so into one holding the bottom half of your foot, one holding the top half of your foot, locking into place. So it gives the firefighter that movement and flexibility that you can. So when you are working,
they feel a lot lighter as well. I mean, given that the boot it just feels smarter. It feels a lot lighter. So we obviously use it for a lot of the athletic endeavors that we do, because it is just so much tighter, like you said, with the lacing structure, but it feels much more agile around the ankle as well. Hence why we use it for, sprinting upstairs. And
I think what the Fire Hero did, it kind of brought along that unique way of looking at how we build the fire boot. And, as you say, 2015, we had the Fire Eagle that came in. And for me, I joined HAIX in 2014. And 2015, we launched the Fire Eagle, and that's an incredible boot.
These are great names, by the way. But I love that. The name. I mean, I've got the Black Eagle Athletic as well, and that is just absolutely stunning. But he's so damn light as well. I was saying to my wife the other day, she was like, "Are you sure these are going to last?" Because it literally is. You're so indoctrinated into massively heavy, clumpy boots that something that's agile. And I was like, yeah. And even we didn't get into a debate about it, but I went to the extent of going all over Google and showing all these military individuals overseas, wearing these boots for years on end. And ultimately, she eventually said, how much they cost. I was like, trust me, they're worth it. They're fantastic boots. They're great.
Don't ask questions like that.
But no, they're a fantastic aspect to it, and I love the names.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think Eval's unique way of looking at what the firefighter needed, and the changing role of the firefighter. Over the years, as you know far more than I do, the role of the firefighter has changed. Work that you're doing, and I think the variety of jobs you go to, you need a product that isn't just your bog standard pull-on welly boot type.
This is it. The days in the 1930s where you were just stood outside a raging inferno with some plastic. It had to be waterproof then, because you weren't necessarily expected to run or jump or anything like that. We kind of accepted that you were just going to pull on a pair of wellies and you'd stand there, 4 or 5 people on a branch, absolutely banging water through it. Whereas now we're climbing in and out of trenches, we're going up buildings, we're working in much smaller crews. So the agility and skill set of a firefighter is not better or worse, but it's far different than what it once was.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do, certainly within the UK and also across Europe, we do a lot of work with the extrication teams and the work that they do. And, they love the Fire Eagle as a product because it's flexible, it's versatile, they can, I've watched these guys train and work at some of the kind of competitions as well that they do, and it's incredible the places they get into, and they're
historically, like I remember when I first did my LACE course, so line access casualty extrication, where you basically you scale a building in a controlled manner, moving from anchor to anchor, and then you'll find a casualty that's already suspended, and then have to basically package them up and then take them down. And historically, having to try and do that in the equipment that we were provided with, that was the biggest hurdle that we had to try and overcome. Whereas now, like you said with the fire gun stuff, you don't even have to change your boots. Do you know what I mean? You can climb in these things, which something like that, the amount of, without getting to, plantar flexion, dorsiflexion, the articulation in the ankle that's required is massive. And having something lightweight and agile to be able to do that in is so reassuring. And it responds to your foot, unlike the dead space that you have in a big welly boot or something like that.
And, that's where Eval's passion came from. And, that's carried on through his, as you know, Eval sadly passed away in 2019. And family element has continued within HAIX with Michael and Tanya, his two children. And they have, without doubt, inherited that passion. You know, I was lucky enough to work with these guys, and it just filtered through.
Yeah. It's a really exciting time in the business, isn't it? Because, I mean, they were probably only a year or so into their own, you know, not version, but their own ambitions and direction with the company when this, you know, and I don't want to get into a COVID chat, but this whole pandemic hit.
Yeah.
But again, this is the time more than ever that the emergency services have never had a day off. You know, military haven't had a day off. A lot of the manufacturing process and stuff, all the safety work, safety gear and stuff you guys supply, that's never been in such high demand in certain aspects. So this is one of those challenges that really, I imagine, has presented itself as an opportunity for a long-standing company such as yourself.
Yeah, it absolutely has. You know, we pride ourselves on supporting the emergency services across all sectors. And 2021 as a year has been a very tough year for a lot of people, and the emergency services have been core in kind of keeping the countries, you know, UK and Germany and all the other countries we work in, keeping it moving, keeping
globally,
it operating,
just keeping the seams together, basically stop the whole thing falling apart.
And so it's been challenging, but I think you know, we had a successful year last year. We kind of, as a business, as a brand, kind of a perspective.
So I was looking through some of the kit the other day, and obviously when I was kind of did like a mini sales pitch to my missus, to be fair, I was reading the 4 core features. You know, when you get yourself a new favorite little toy or a new favorite little bit of something or a favorite gadget, and then you basically become a salesperson for the thing. You're like, oh, they're amazing, they're this, they're that. And I was going through the core features with her, but I thought when I was on the call with you today, who better to get it from?
I've got this very strange picture that the Wakefield household of an evening with presenting to his wife on PowerPoint.
I do the same, mate. Whenever I go on a course or something like that, I'll come back and I'll tell her everything about animal rescue, and she'll be like, "Baby, that's great. I don't need to know that though. I know, but right, let me just tell you this bit." And I'm a tough guy to live with, but she's patient, so we balance us out. But the 4 core features, as obvious as some of them may seem to people, you guys really take them seriously, and I think that's the real difference. And behind each one of these 4 core features, there's, you know, millions of pounds and hours and people and opinions and feedback taken. So hit us with the 4, brother, and how that sort of goes into the brand.
Well, I mean, the kind of four pillars really is kind of protection, grit, durability, and then kind of grouped together at the end is like fit and support. If you look at that first one, protection, that's always first and foremost in what we do for the boot. You look at the job and where that protection is needed, and whether in fire service, for example, we look at the puncture resistant midsole. We always use steel in ours for our fire boots. You know, that there are alternatives out there. We've looked at the alternatives. We personally don't feel the safety is as good as it can be with a composite midsole as it can be with a steel midsole. So, you know, that's where we kind of work.
Well, there's a balance with because obviously steel is heavy. So every time you accept that obviously glaring fact of its fantastic protection aspect, you've got to onboard the weight. It's a bit like a Formula One car. Every time you accept that, you're like, well, we can't, there's no better solution out there, and you onboard it. But like you've said about the changing role of a firefighter before, I can't agree with you more. Some of the surfaces we walk across when we go and collapse structures and all that sort of stuff, there's reinforced steel bars sticking out everywhere, and you're climbing all over it with your boots. You really can't afford, you know, when someone's walking around their garden in a £10 pair of welly boots from Marks & Spencer and they stand on a nail and an old bit of wood. Well, we can't be having that, and it's more likely that it's going to happen to us. Yeah,
and you know, we look at the lab tests that are done for the kind of puncture resistance. That, as you know, is a certified protection, part of the EN 20345 protection, and the lab test is with a particular type of nail and a particular type of way it's punctures. But we look at the job as well. We look at the lab tests, obviously, because, you know, to get the full certification, you need to make sure you kind of meet all the requirements. But then we, more importantly, look at the job and say, right, this is a better material for this job. Does it meet the standards? Yeah, of course it does. But yeah, you know, is this the better material for the job?
Because you see companies that meet standards but barely meet the standards. You know, they're just scaping through. And when I was reading about the fall protection, you know, from the amount of stuff that's always flying about at incidents and dropping out of the sky, that's an aspect that I hadn't really considered before, because you guys, it doesn't just offer sort of protection in the standard areas that you consider. A lot of it's woven into the entire fabric of the boot.
Yeah, you know, we always say meeting the standards is the minimum requirement. It's that's your start point, and then
who wants to be the minimum? Who the hell wants to be the minimum in life? That is such a low, depressing goal, isn't it?
It's you want to outperform everything. You look at the leathers we use. So, in our fire boots, again, as an example, we're using a minimum of 2mm leather thicknesses, and we use bull hide leather because it's a stronger composition. You can get leather, you can get fake leathers, synthetic
We've all
leathers,
seen the handbags and the boots on the market stall, haven't we?
Yeah,
that say they're leather, and probably a bit of them once was, but not anymore.
Yeah. They've seen something at some point in their life that may have been leather.
May have been leather, yeah.
Yeah. But,
we walked through a field before we killed it, yeah. Anyway.
We're using bull hide leather and also in Europe as well, so we're very kind of aware of its origins.
And for anybody that's ever bought a really good, pair of, if anyone's got a pair of HAIX or they've had a really good wallet, and I'm not after, I don't want to do the animal rights side of it because it's all done in a nice, humane way, but when you have got something that's real, you can genuinely feel the difference. And it's not as, it's rigid, it's not uncomfortable. Do you know what I mean? No. Because if you've got people think leather's quite rigid. It's not. If you've got really good, if you've actually got really good stuff, it's not the way that people think it is. Often what they've got there is a weird composite, and it's not really what it says it is.
And you can a lot of the fake leathers and stuff, or the kind of cheap leathers. You can have a cut leather with a coat on the top. Yeah. As soon as you put a coat on there, you're blocking the pores, you're affecting the breathability, and it comes a bit stiffer. If you've got a proper bull hide leather, breathes, it moves, it works with you. It's a natural substance, so it's a much better way of doing it. And also from a protection, with the Fire Eagle I know when we launched that, we put the bright yellow on the sole unit.
I was going to say that. It's one of the most ironic things about a lot of firefighting boots historically is they've all been black. Whereas we preach about, you're going into a low visibility environment, you won't be able to see. Right. And then we're wearing these big black boots and even road traffic collisions. Do you know what I mean? We're wearing these and I know on our tunics and whatever, we'll have a bit of high visibility, but I love that you've seen that in the sector and you've adopted it. You've gone, that's a great idea. I don't know why we're not doing it. Let's do it.
Well, exactly. It was one of those kind of almost no-brainers. Is kind of why aren't we putting
because no one else does it, Simon, because it's not the way it's done. Yeah. Because historically we didn't need to.
Want to have, we want to have plain black boots. So we've integrated it into the sole unit as well, because if you're going on hands and knees into fire building, then you want to see your partner in front. You want to see if he's on his hands and knees, all you can see is the soles of his feet.
But also, without being too morbid, and we don't want to get there. If a firefighter or any individual from an emergency service, something like that, has gone down in an environment, and you need to go in there to extricate them, probably the first thing you're either going to see is their head, if they're facing that way, or their feet. And if their feet are just plain black, I've done fire investigation stuff before where they'll show you a big collapsed structure, or they'll show you the inside of a room where a firefighter had lost their life, and they'll go, "Can you see the firefighter?" And then you'll send ages, you can't see him, and then they'll go, "Right, can you see the boot sticking out the bottom?" And it'll be a plain black boot, and they'll go, "Firefighters were in there for half an hour and they couldn't find them." Now, if they'd have been wearing HAIX boots, they'd have probably seen them. Maybe not, but definitely would have stood a better chance.
Yeah, and that's what we want to do.
It's a horrible thing to think of, but it's, you live in a horrible environment, but we live in an environment where we're like, it's the same thing about, got to protect from stepping on a nail. Oh God, why, Simon? Why are you being so negative? Oh, because it's probably going to bloody happen. Yeah, it's very likely. Firefighters going into an environment, we put them in breathing apparatus because they might die in there if they don't do the things right. So
and that's why protection will always be first and foremost in our mind.
So I know I've made a long one of that, but that's protection. I've made a long one of that. Sorry, that's my fault. I just get so excited about stuff. I have a horrible habit of interrupting people.
No problem.
Protection. Grip is up next, brother.
Grip, obviously, slip, trips and falls are some of the highest instances of accidents within the workplace. So, grip goes across all the sectors we work in military, in workwear, in kind of even in so important. So, and with firefighters as well. Firefighters, we have to look at the environment that you're working in out, separately to how we do it with the police, how we do it with workwear and stuff like that. So we look at the environment. We look at it. There's generally a lot of water sloshing around.
It's not just that. That's not the biggest one for me. It's all the carcinogens and all the runoff and all the rubbish that comes from all the chemicals. Think of a road traffic collision. You think of a building. You're going through somebody's garage to get to a certain place. You could tick a lot of these boxes and forget about grip. You could get a rock hard leather with a really solid big plastic insulated sole or whatever, and it's like wearing ice skates. Do you know what I mean? You go in a thing and it's dangerous.
And and the sole unit is obviously vitally important when you're kind of talking about grip. But then when you look at the whole construction of the boot, I personally think the more flexible a boot is, the more adaptable your foot is to the surface you're walking on. That helps with the grip as well.
Because you're going to constantly have a maximum surface area impact as it moves with your foot. Absolutely, yeah.
And so we work on the treads, we work on the flexibility. So we look at the footwear as a whole unit with regard to grip. Because last thing you want to be doing is falling over and putting yourself.
Yeah. You can look as good as you like until you fall flat on your face. You're going to ruin it.
Yeah, absolutely. The other element, one of the other 4 pillars we talked about is durability. One, kind of a very basic principle: you don't want your boots falling apart when you're on the job.
No. I had a pair that they had a really good ringlets. It was a different brand, obviously. Had really good ringlets on the top of them. But like the third time I pulled them on, I snapped them straight off the top, because when you tend to put your boots on, you do so in a very quick manner. And I'm not a tiny person, but I did it a bit enthusiastically and ripped them straight off. And my immediate thought was frustration of, what is this cheap rubbish I've got on my feet? I wasn't trying to pull a 40-kilo dumbbell off the ground. I literally just pulled my boots on and snapped the top of them off, and it's just annoying. And again, you have to buy new ones.
And as you say, and if you're going out on a call and that happens, you're stuck. It's kind of, now what do I do?
Well, technically, I'd go, and I have done it before. I'm just going to have to go anyway. But if I had an injury or anything in my life, and then I tried to claim on my fire service insurance, and they inspected my fire kit, they would go, "You've not been keeping your PPE up to standard, Pete. Your boots are damaged. Why were you wearing boots that were damaged? You should have requested another set of boots." And I was like, "They're rubbish. I don't want another pair of ones."
Yeah, and we look at the fire boots as well in with regard to durability, is that they need to last a long time. Because of the way you wear them, it's not an everyday boot. It's a boot that you'll be wearing on a cold, then it stands aside. So we expect the life of a fire boot to be a lot longer than it is with other boots. So then you have to look at the materials you're using and the degradation that happens within those materials. So if it's, and how they're stored and stuff like that. So that's where the quality leathers and the sub-materials.
I imagine as well, though, for your military personnel that work overseas, who are geographically very difficult to get a second pair of boots out to. Do you know what I mean? That's where you're like, look, you want to deploy, you might be deploying for 6 months or a year or 2 years or whatever, and you'll be going from country to country, you'll be pond hopping from different deployment to different deployment. Getting them a new pair of boots is not necessarily going to be as easy as it sounds.
No, and it's a big question. I mean, it's a key question in some of our wear trials that we do with the military guys is, almost the last question: would you be happy to take this boot on deployment? Which is potentially, sometimes we'll go with a pair of boots. So 6 months, that's your boots. Are you happy with that? And that's a yes or no. And it's a big, it's a big question.
Because it's not like us. With all due respect, we wear ours for drill and we wear ours for going out on a fire call. They wear them 24/7 everywhere they go. Yeah. You've got to feel comfortable. If there's anything wrong, please say it now. Don't left any stone unturned, because these are going to be your boots.
Don't get out there and say,
yeah,
don't quite fit.
Yeah, they don't fit. They're a little bit tight. Oh, I'm glad you've told us now. We're 17,000 miles away.
So that was what we were talking about, durability, when we then kind of fit and support, obviously. One of the key things we look at with support is whole injury prevention and musculoskeletal injuries and stuff like that. It's particularly relevant within the military, but also in the police as well, where they're wearing their boots all day, every day, and with all the emergency services, really. Is that it's not just, okay, just do they fit nice? Are they supporting the foot? Are they preventing you getting
injured? Do you think the police are one of the most difficult ones to serve? Because we've had a few police officers in before, and they a lot of them speak about when they remember back to when they had to wear shoes all the time. Mm-hmm. And I'd love to hear your perspective on this, because moving from shoes to still lightweight but functional boots, people are like, they don't look as smart. But in terms of the user, when you're expecting a bobby to suddenly explode into a sprint and chase after an assailant in the street, a nice set of moccasins isn't really going to cut it, is it? It's not going to quite hack it. But if you can recall back, when did they start moving towards more boots in the general day-to-day bobby?
The thing with police is quite interesting, is that they are generally, most of the police forces in the UK are generally responsible for their own footwear. Personally, so if you, depending on, it very much depends on which police service you're in, whether you're in Cumbria Police or Norfolk Police.
Do they get given a budget though? They get given some money to go and get some.
It honestly, it varies across services. Some will be given a budget, some will be given the first pair of boots. If you're in a specialist unit, if you're in a firearms unit, you're a dog handler, examples like that, then you will be issued a pair of boots and necessary piece of PPE. However, the general Bobby on the beat, that's no disrespect to the guys.
No.
Yeah. Do a great job. They have to source their own footwear. They'll be given a guide. This is what you need to get, and source their own footwear. And it's from my perspective, it's quite frustrating because they will generally it's classed as a work boot to them, and they don't want to spend too much money on a pair of boots for work.
Yeah.
Whereas in reality, they're going to be in that pair of boots way more than their kind of leisure shoes and stuff like that. And they really need to look after themselves, look after their feet. You know, you can get a really, really good pair of police boots for 120, 130 quid. And then it's going to give you weather protection, it's going to give you underfoot protection, it's going to give you grip and support, and it's going to give you all those elements that we talk about.
And you do feel, and I maybe I'm being my own on this one, I feel like an Olympian when I'm wearing a really nice set of good fit. I mean, them Black Eagle Athletics, you know, and I know they come in all sorts of different brands and stuff like that, all different sorts of designs and stuff like that. But when you're wearing them, because, you know, you can just imagine it, can't you? You can see, and I've seen it 1,000 times, you know, the police officer standing there in a cold morning, 3 a.m., stood, taking a statement in a pair of hard, flat-soled shoes that they haven't taken care of. They might be well polished, but their ankles are just screaming. And because they don't, some of them haven't got cars, you know, they're just walking around all day. And they used to pop into the fire stations just to sit down because they're like, bloody feet are killing me.
Yeah. And he kind of thinks, look, it's tough. You know, it's easy for me to sit here and say, well, just spend a bit more on your boots. You know, people haven't got the money to spend on another pair of boots. You know, it's kind of, trust me, it will make a difference. It will make a difference.
And I know that when you say that, you're really calling out to the employer as well and saying, look, you want the best out of your people. You know we do. And in the grand scheme of things, you really will get. The problem is we do the old time for money exchange. You know, I'm doing a 12-hour shift today. You know what? In a 12-hour shift with somebody in poor footwear, you're probably going to get 7-8 hours of work out of them, maybe. Yeah. But if somebody's comfy, if they're warm, you know, if you're going to get another couple of hours out of them, because honestly, you won't know it directly at the time, but they'll be not slacking off, but they'll just be desperate to sit down, to finish the job as fast as possible, to, you know, they're not really paying attention, because when you're talking to me, I can't think nothing but my back hurts and my feet hurt, and I'm not really listening to the person that's giving me a statement, with all due respect, and I've heard that from officers as well. So it seems like an investment, and it is, but you're going to be spending the money in additional hours of people power anyway to do the job that didn't get done in the first place because they weren't comfortable.
And the lost man hours because of guys training sick.
Oh, God, yeah.
You know, one, you've got the cold feet element. So if you haven't got good weather protection, so your feet are wet and cold and stuff, and you know what it's like. Your whole body, your immune system drops. You're picking up all sorts of kind of colds and flus and stuff like that. And then the other element, which is huge, is the lack of support in your boots. You're going to get lower leg injuries, lower back injuries and stuff like that. And the lost man hours.
And if you capture that cost, like you say, even just from one incident, from somebody rolling their ankle or somebody getting sick and they have a week off, you know, because of poor health conditions, you know, a standard officer, I don't know, I'm going to throw some arbitrary numbers, but they'll know what they are. It's a couple of £100, you know, if they're on whatever, £2,000 a month or £1,200 a month, it's a few £100, and that's one incident. Do you know what I mean? Chances are, if they've rolled their ankle once, or if they've got the first indications of debilitating health condition in their feet, it's not going to get any better, is it? It's going to get worse unless something changes. And every time they have that time off, it's costing their brigade, and it's more than just the manpower cost, because then it's the support, it's the HR, it's the and you're up to £1,000 very fast. Yeah,
I mean, I feel sorry for a lot of the police forces around the UK, because, you know, in Ireland, for example, they all get issued boots. HAIX, by the way.
Yeah, baby.
So they're the lucky ones.
Absolutely.
And the PSNI and also, you know, these guys, they get issued boots, whereas the UK police services, some do. You know, it depends on the role you're in. Some roles do, but then a lot.
No. And you know what? I know you don't necessarily find it hard to say that because you do say it to a lot of companies. But if you provide the best thing in the market, it's nothing. You'd almost be a disservice to somebody not to tell them that. So, you know, it's just being honest, and, you know, through methods of like talk for us having this conversation today, it's the only way people are going to know that these things are out there, and they hear a little bit more about, oh wow, I didn't realize I could request that because I just got given these shoes or got given these boots 6 years ago, and they're absolutely killing me. Do you know what I mean? I don't think I can keep doing the job. I need to find an office job just so I can sit down. Whereas it's not that they don't enjoy the job. They join the job out of passion and out of a desire to make a difference. But if you don't provide them with the right equipment, they ain't got the tools to do the job.
No, we see that a lot. We work quite a lot in the utilities industries.
Yeah.
So with the kind of power line generation companies and stuff like that with the linesmen, and they're out all day, kind of out there fixing stuff and doing, vital work to kind of keep the electricity flowing around the country.
Yeah.
And they need these, and it makes a massive difference. So, we see it come through on tenders where they want a certain type of boot with no substitute because they need that to do their job.
Yes.
And they can't have an alternative.
I see this, mate. I see when we call out gas and electric companies to drive out to the middle of nowhere, people feel a little bit knocked. Like they'll be like, "Oh, check this so-and-so driving out in the nice car," and they'll have a nice car, and they'll be wearing nice stuff, and they'll be warm, they'll be well protected, they'll have a good set of boots on, they'll have good set of gloves, a good hat, because that individual's 1 hour of work is going to unlock. Seven blooming sectors of housing where all the electricity's gone off. It's gonna make a massive change. Whereas if that person turns up in a vehicle that's barely running, they're cold, their back hurts, they've got cold feet, they're not going to be effective. They're just not going to be able to do it. And that's where, this is similar to the police analogy, you've just got to be able to absorb that cost and see the bigger picture. So, I mean, being out there all the time, especially during the pandemic, you're not at necessarily the top of the level in the UK and Ireland, but the nature of a salesperson, it can be quite challenging at times, and I imagine through different companies you've had to have some pretty difficult conversations with people at times, even though you think you know what's best for them. I wanted to ask you on a personal note, mate, what sort of motivates you to keep pushing yourself and making the brand better every day?
I think it's the satisfaction thing. So one of the nicest things I always hear is that you get somebody a pair of boots. So you'll give somebody a pair of trial boots, and then a few weeks later they'll come back to you and go, "These are by far the best boots I've ever had. Thank you."
It's like night and day.
It's just you try and convince people. I know you do this, do that, do this, but I think you get such a kind of feeling. So you know that if you give them this particular boot, it's going to make a difference.
Yeah,
and you go. Yeah, and you get that message back in a month's time or whatever, going, brilliant, this is the
I
best
used to be blind and now I can see. Yeah. It really is that sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Whereas in some industries, you kind of think, well, people tell you there's no such thing as a waterproof boot. That's just because they've never had a waterproof boot.
Yeah, and you can understand them saying that. Do you know what I mean? You can. It's like something without being too extreme. It's like somebody saying all men are violent. Well, if they've only ever been in violent relationships, then they're going to believe it. If they had a violent partner, violent father, violent whatever, they're absolutely right. In their experience, the way they've been treated, the things they've been exposed to, that's all they're ever going to believe. But until they're introduced to something like yourselves, they're not going to know. If they don't know, they don't know. Some people have probably never been treated with the right respect to be given the right set of footwear in their job.
Yeah, exactly. And it's quite common where people say, well, these boots kept my feet dry for maybe a couple of months, and then obviously they start leaking because no boot can remain waterproof. You're just not wearing the right boots. I've had they'll say, well, it's got this generic membrane in there that's keeping it waterproof. So, well, have you tried a Gore-Tex boot yet?
Yeah.
So there you go. HAIX Gore-Tex boot. Try these.
Yeah.
Oh, incredible! My feet stayed dry. The sole wore out before my feet started leaking. There you go.
Yeah, and again, it echoes back to that test of time. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, you hear back from them in a month saying, "Man, these are incredible. They feel awesome. I really enjoy them." But then it's still 6 months, 12 months later when they go, "Mate, I've so bedded into them now. I feel like I could sleep in them."
I suppose, and that's what keeps you kind of going. That kind of feedback all the time is that these really work. Thank you.
So I know we spoke about the big change in the fire sector, in how things change. But in your sort of time with the company, what have been some of the big levers that you think have been pulled that have been some of the most exciting changes in HAIX?
I think it is when we introduce new products that do really make a difference. So, like Fire Eagle within fire. So when we launched Fire Eagle in 2015, that made a massitive difference. And the Black Eagle lines, you mentioned it yourself, you've had these lighter.
Mate, they're really nice.
HAIX has traditionally, if you look back in the history, been kind of solid, that whole German manufacturing, solid, dependable, structured, blah, blah, blah. And that can be what people think. But, where we've come out with boots like the Black Eagle, like that, people go, oh, okay, that's different.
Yeah.
And it's light, it's flexible, but it's still giving you that kind of degree of trust that you have with a HAIX product. It's kind of, I'm still getting that durability, I'm still getting that protection, but in a light and flexible product.
You've almost got such a frustrating authenticity. And I know we covered it at the beginning of our chat, but for the competition, it's a frustrating authenticity around the firefighting background, the service background, the shoemaking background, the German background. It almost, if you can sympathise, it can be a little bit unfair for some of the people looking at HAIX. Really, I know I'm all for a challenge, mate. I'm a serial optimist, but I wouldn't necessarily fancy starting a boot company versus HAIX.
Yeah, it is, and we are that kind of trusting, dependable. You know, you're going to get a good. Yes, you have to pay a little bit more.
Buy once.
Yeah, exactly, and buy somebody you can trust. And we're not way more expensive than everybody else. We're possibly, really we're at the kind of same. We're at high level price, and there are other brands at high level price. So
do you want quality or not? Do you know what I mean? You pay peanuts, you get monkeys. At the end of the day, it's just the way it works, isn't it? So as we're moving into 2021 now, as we're sort of getting right into 2021 now, and we're moving out of this pandemic, services are changing. The structure of the military and the police and the ambulance service, and certainly the fire service, seems to be changing all the time. Not in a sporadic fashion, but there's so many needs that need to be filled out there. I wanted to know, how does HAIX see itself working alongside the emergency services and our military and frontline workers? What are some of the biggest goals for HAIX in 2021 and beyond?
It's very much kind of delivering, it's always been, it's delivering solutions. It's kind of finding where there are issues, but also thinking beyond that. We're working a lot more with the health of the worker and the health of the guys, as well as their kind of safety and protection. So yes, we know we can protect. Yeah. We know we can give you all the protection you need. We know we can give you kind of the durability and stuff like that. But how can we help improve your day-to-day work? And we're working with systems within our footwear that work with the kind of the human body and work with your feet as part of that and keep you healthy. In Germany, we've launched a line called Connect, which is kind of working with a fascia system around the body.
Wow.
It's really,
that sounds good.
It's really clever stuff. And it's really clever stuff. We've launched it in kind of workwear in Germany, and that's hopefully something we can bring Europe in the future into the UK. And kind of
look, mate, when you need some product testing going on for that, be sure to shout out. I mean, the Team GB Firefighters will be all over that. I always say to people, and I'm sure it's not just the fire service, but when we get a new piece of equipment or something delivered to us, we're like, oh no, it's not been firefighter tested yet, because we will break things. We just break things. We just go, oh, I wonder if you can do this with it. I wonder if we can do that with it. Or what and you give them a new pair of boots, and they go, they're the sort of people that go, yeah, I went up Snowdon in them on Sunday. Not the sort of person that goes, yeah, I went for a walk around the park and they felt comfortable. They felt nice. These guys are like, yeah, we went in and out of the lane, and we did a bit of open water swimming, and then we went up the mountain. And you're like, okay. So they work then.
It's been great. It's been really good actually working with you guys for the Firefighter Challenge thing. It's because you're absolutely right. You give honest opinion.
Oh yeah, that's it, isn't it?
There's no sugarcoating. If something's not working, you let us know.
Yeah.
Which is great. That's exactly what you need. But yeah,
and I bet you get that from the military and the police as well. Versus, with all due respect, some of the workwear sector, with the greatest of respect, there's some more corporate brands there that have to give structured feedback where we'll just be like, mate, these are rubbish. The lace is snapped. The lace is snapped. What am I supposed to do with this, brother? And he'll be like, all right, mate, that's good. Yeah, I like your style. Send me a photo. Send them back to us. We'll have not that it's ever happened for us, but that's it. You get it really blunt. You get it straight up, and that's the best way to evolve. If you can't take the truth for people out there, then
that's the only way to improve it. To kind of look and learn and listen.
100%. And I don't know if there's an aspect of German in that as well, because with all due respect, I've lived with a couple of Germans from time to time, and they can be quite blunt at times as well. But that's why they often get things right. And if they make a mistake, they tend to only make it once. Do you know what I mean? Because they're happy to learn quick.
There's nothing wrong with making mistakes. Just don't do it again.
Yeah. I love it.
When we talk about, the history with HAIX and stuff like that, I know one of your questions that you looked at is the proudest moment working within HAIX.
I mean, you've done so much across the sports sector and everything like that. I wanted to sort of close by asking you, what's your proudest moment in working with HAIX? And it's been a hell of a journey, really. It
has, yeah. I mean, I joined in 2014, new to the brand. I've been with other brands in the past. And, I knew HAIX because we'd referenced them as kind of good product in my previous work. I didn't really get how big they were in fire, because at that point we weren't doing much in fire. And then 2015, I went to Intership, the big fire show, and I saw the stand that we had.
It's nice, isn't it?
And two-story stand with a bar, and the interest we got on the people crowding onto the stand and the excitement and the euphoria coming from that market. And I suddenly kind of thought, okay, this is what HAIX is all about. This is special. And, I remember standing on the top floor of the stand, looking down at all these people queuing to get a backpack. In the mornings, we would give away a backpack, a free backpack, and people would be running into the hall to get one of these backpacks.
Straight past all the people with leaflets and all the other brands.
Yeah,
where are they going?
And that's where you kind of stood there going, oh, okay, I get this now. Yeah. And that's where you kind of, we felt really proud to be part of that brand.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, this is one. This is a special brand with a special, and I think that's where you could see that real connection between HAIX and the firefighter community.
100%.
And you kind of thought, okay, this is special. And then for me, it's also then working with you guys with the fire services around the UK. You kind of think, it's a special community.
It is a really, really weird one. I feel like we strike the balance really well because I have the utmost respect for all of our military personnel and stuff like that. But sometimes they're awfully serious, which is good because they do a very serious job. And we do a serious job as well. But there's something about the fire service which is a 50-50 blend, or maybe a bit more of a blend of discipline, but also a lot of banter and also a lot of passion. We do a great job and we stand for something really morally good in our communities, whilst I suppose our military protect us more overseas and against some harsher people that are out to get us. But the fire service is that neighborhood fire service, passionate, bit of discipline, do a great job, high standards, great kit, and you're right, mate. And that's the whole thing of the podcast. It's that fire service family, and we referenced it right at the beginning. HAIX is the firefighter family business. There's no two ways about it. Yeah,
it is, and I think I feel really proud to kind of work alongside you guys. It's kind of been an eye opener for me, kind of looking at, and now it's weird. Every time I see a fire engine go past, a little bit more extra respect from my side, having worked with you and understood the job that you do a lot more than I did before when I was looking at it from the outside. So.
And it's greatly appreciated, man. I mean, the fire service was here long before you and I, and even all the HAIX family, and it'll be here long after. But whilst we're here, I feel very proud and honoured both to be sharing chat like this with you, but also to be aligned with people that are really trying to make a difference for the short period of time that we are here and that we're given an opportunity to leave things better than we found them. Beautiful.
Good stuff.
Simon, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to be here with us today, my man. It's greatly appreciated, mate. I really look forward to hopefully seeing you again, either at the Emergency Services show or at the BFC or a little bit later on across the pond somewhere, no doubt. Pouring your passion into somebody.
Definitely. I mean, we're going to be at the Emergency Services show. We'll be at the British Firefighter Challenges. We'll be at the Firefighters Championships over in Germany and around. So I'm sure our cross will pass again.
I'm coming there, brother. We will get a drink together and we'll get a big hot dog somewhere, I'm sure.
And I fully expect any of these international competitions, the GB Firefighter team aren't winning.
Oh, I know, mate. Honestly, this is a good year for us. Love it. Beautiful. Thank you, my good man. Send my love to the family.
All right, mate.
I look forward to speaking to you soon.
Thanks, mate. Cheers, mate.
Take care, son. Hey folks, that's wrapping up on another episode. That is Simon Ash from HAIX. Such a lovely guy. I mean, it was great to hear how the story has unfolded, some of the big goals for the company, how it's doing so well, how it really listens to the feedback from our frontline workers to make sure it's giving the absolute best to everybody, taking so many considerations into place. And you and I can both know, if you ain't wearing the right footwear, nothing else really matters. If your feet are screaming, you just are counting the seconds until the day ends. So for more information about HAIX, take a look at the notes below. That's it. Just press the show more button whether you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or whatever your platform of choice is. Have a look below. You'll see the HAIX website. Go over, take a look. As I mentioned, boots I'm wearing at the minute are the Black Eagle Athletics. They're absolutely awesome. You'll love them. Get yourself a pair, and if you message the Firefighters Podcast Instagram page, we may also be able to help you out. There may be a bit of a secret in there. So drop us a message. Tell us you listened to the episode. Tell us you've gone and had a look. We want to know your rank, your role, and where you're listening in the world. Send all that over to the Instagram page, and you yourself may very well find yourself wearing a stunning pair of HAIX very soon, giving your feet the treatment they deserve. So once again, a big thanks for coming back. Make sure you stay up to date with everything. There's a link below for you to drop your details in, get an email when the new episodes drop. This is your opportunity to be the first on scene, at the tip of the sword, finger on the pulse, getting the latest hot off the press. So drop onto that link, get notified when new episodes get released. There's also an opportunity for you to show your support for the Firefighters Podcast. So all that's left is for me to say thanks for dropping by. Hope you're happy, hope you're healthy, hope you took some value away from today's episode. Please look after yourself, look after each other, stay happy, stay healthy, stay hungry, and stay tuned. We will see you back again right here real soon on the Firefighters Podcast.